Here are the most basic of the MacLaurin series. So e to the x, 1 plus x squared over 2 factorial plus x cubed over 3 factorial, and so on. By the way, I a lot of times will go ahead and put a 1 factorial there and a 0 factorial there. I start forgetting the factorials if I don't do it from the first step. So it may not be an issue for you, but anyway. The general term is what this is called. The general term is just x to the n over n factorial. So the fifth term, for example, would be x to the fifth over 5 factorial, and so on. Sine is the odd terms and an alternating series, okay? So odd term, that would be the, instead of the 0 term being the first term, 0 would kind of fall in that even category. You'd start out with the n equals 1 term, n equals 3 term, n equals 5, n equals 7, and so on. Notice, same terms as e to the x, except the signs alternate and it's just the odd terms, okay? So the general term is negative 1 to the n. So like negative 1 to the 0 power would be positive 1. You'll get a positive there. Negative 1 to the first power would end up giving you a negative there, which is what you want. To the second power would give you a positive. As long as it's starting out positive and then it goes negative and then it goes positive, you can write that with various different exponents, but that tends to work. To generate odd values, an odd value is 1 off of an even. An even is a multiple of 2. So you're usually going to see a 2n plus 1 or 2n minus 1. In this particular case, we want to start out with the power of 1. The assumption on these series is that you're starting out with the 0 term. And so you do x to the 2n plus 1. So when you start out with n being 0, you get an x to the first over 1 factorial. And then when n is 1, you're going to get an x to the third over 3 factorial, and so on. And then notice, of course, you'll get alternating signs because of that negative 1 to the n power, okay? Cosine of the even terms, that includes the 0 term, okay? X to the 0 is 1 over 0 factorial is 1. X to the second over 2 factorial, and so on. So it's negative 1 to the n, x to the 2n power, or you could say x squared to the n power over 2n factorial, okay? And again, if you want to very quickly generate different series, you know, if I want cosine of 5x, okay, my input has changed from x to 5x. So everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put a 5x, and then make sure that power is getting applied to that whole thing. So cosine of 5x would be 1, and again, this is centered at 0, okay, would be 1 minus my input squared over 2 factorial, plus my input to the 4th over 2 factorial, oops, sorry, over 4 factorial, minus my input to the 6th power over 6 factorial. If I wanted the general term, it would be negative 1 to the n times 5x to the 2n power over 2n factorial, okay? So, you know, you can tweak these pretty easily. You know, if I wanted, so if the input changes, you need to substitute that input in place of x. If the function just has something multiplied by it, again, if I want like 8 sine of x, I would just be taking the whole sine series and just multiplying it by 8. So that would be 8x minus 8x cubed over 3 factorial plus 8x to the 5th over 5 factorial, and so on. You just have 8 times this at the end if you're trying to do a general term. But you can also do things like, for example, you could have the function cosine of x minus 1. Okay, and that would just be to subtract 1 from this function, and that would just be negative x squared over 2 factorial plus x to the 4th over 4 factorial minus x to the 6th over 6 factorial, and so on. So you can also add and subtract values to the series, and you can tweak it that way as well. Or you could maybe like add 2 different series together. If I wanted to take sine of x plus cosine of x, I could just have 1 plus x minus x squared over 2 factorial minus x cubed over 3 factorial. Plus x to the 4th over 4 factorial, plus x to the 5th over 5 factorial. You can add the terms together. Heck, you can multiply with FOIL. You can multiply different terms together. you can see all kinds of different things here. So those are some of the basic manipulations. Again, you need to know those 3 series because they just come up from time to time, and being able to tweak them and generate a series or recognize that a series linked to those can really make your life a lot easier and save you a lot of time and a lot of careless mistakes as well. So that's a pretty important idea on the AP exam that I thought you should know.